The killer was a man they saw every Sunday who led them in prayer, presided over their weddings and baptisms, and offered solace in times of grief. He was Pastor StephenAnderson, and the person he murdered was his own wife, Catherine. On July 21, 2013, a call came into the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department in Alabama. The caller was StephenAnderson, a beloved pastor at the First Baptist Church in Mount Olive. His voice was frantic, strained, almost incomprehensible. He claimed he had found his wife, Catherine, unresponsive in their home. The address was 489 Snow Rogers Road, a quiet suburban house in Gardendale, a community just north of Birmingham. Deputies arrived quickly, their sirens slicing through the late afternoon calm, to find a scene that at first glance appeared tragic, but quickly began to unravel into something far more sinister. They entered the unassuming residence to find StephenAnderson, a man typically composed and dignified, pacing nervously. The air was thick with unspoken dread. In the master bedroom, lying face down on the bed, was Catherine Anderson. She was 53 years old. Her body was already cold to the touch. There were no obvious signs of a struggle, no forced entry, nothing immediately screamed violence. It looked like a natural death, perhaps a sudden medical emergency. But the veteran officers had an instinct, a flicker of something out of place. Stephen told them he had been out for a while, running errands, and returned home to find her this way. His story was simple, straightforward, and yet, beneath the surface, a subtle current of unease began to stir among the responders. Catherine Anderson was not just a pastor's wife. She was a vibrant, active member of her community. She worked as an accountant for a local law firm, a meticulous and well-respected professional. Those who knew her described her as kind, gentle, and deeply devoted to her family and her faith. She was the steady hand behind her charismatic husband, the quiet strength that often anchors dynamic public figures. Her life was rooted in routine, in service, in the ordinary rhythms of a small-town church and home. She had 2 adult children from a previous marriage and was a doting grandmother. Her sudden, unexplained death sent a ripple of disbelief through Gardendale. How could someone so full of life simply be gone? And why was her husband, a man known for his spiritual leadership, seemingly so detached in his grief, even amidst his professed shock? StephenAnderson, on the other hand, was the quintessential Southern Baptist pastor. He had served the First Baptist Church in Mount Olive for nearly 2 decades, guiding his congregation through births, deaths, and countless sermons. His voice was warm, his sermons compelling, his presence comforting. He was a pillar of the community, a man people turned to for guidance, for wisdom, for reassurance. He had performed the weddings of young couples, baptized their children, and stood by them during their darkest hours. To his flock, he was a man above reproach, a shepherd of souls. The idea that anything could be amiss in his life, let alone his home, was unthinkable. This profound trust, this unwavering faith in his character, would become a formidable barrier for investigators. Initially, detectives treated Catherine's death as an undetermined fatality. There were no bullet holes, no stab wounds, no blood-soaked carpets. But the medical examiner, Dr. Gregory Davis, quickly identified a crucial detail. There were small, faint hemorrhages in Catherine's eyes, petechiae. These tiny burst blood vessels are often indicators of asphyxiation, of oxygen deprivation. They are a silent scream, a telltale sign that a body has been deprived of air, usually by strangulation or smothering. This discovery transformed the case from a tragic accident into a homicide investigation. The serene bedroom in Gardendale was now a crime scene.
With the petechia as their guide, investigators returned to the Anderson home with a different lens. They meticulously processed the scene, looking for anything that contradicted Stephen's account. His initial statement was that he'd been gone for a few hours, returning to find Catherine. But the timeline began to develop small, almost imperceptible cracks. Where exactly had he been? What was he doing? And why, if he had just discovered his wife, did his demeanor seem so carefully composed? The search warrants were executed, and the house, once a sanctuary, became a repository of potential evidence. Every item, every surface was examined for clues. What does it take to truly know someone, especially when they occupy a position of such profound trust? As the investigation intensified, detectives began interviewing family members, friends, and congregants. Everyone expressed shock, but a pattern of subtle anxieties about the Anderson marriage began to emerge. Not overt conflict, not screaming matches, but an undercurrent of strain. There were whispers of financial difficulties, a common stressor in many households, but magnified by Stephen's position of public trust. Pastors, like many professionals, face expectations of stability, both spiritual and material. Any deviation from this ideal could be perceived as a failure, a chink in the armor of their pastoral image. Detectives learned that Catherine had recently received a significant inheritance, a sum of money that, while not life-changing wealth, could have alleviated some of those financial pressures. This fact introduced a new, chilling dimension to the case. Was money a motive? Was the inheritance, meant to provide comfort, now a poisoned chalice? The idea of a pastor, a man sworn to spiritual guidance, being driven by such worldly concerns was a deeply unsettling thought. It challenged everything people believed about him. The initial hours of an investigation are critical, a race against time before evidence degrades or memories fade. While Stephen maintained his story, the forensic evidence was speaking a different language. Catherine's body showed no signs of a struggle, which could imply a sudden attack or that she knew her assailant. There was also the absence of forced entry, pointing suspicion squarely at someone with access to the home. The more detectives pieced together, the more apparent it became that the killer was not some unknown intruder, but someone intimately familiar with Catherine and her routines. The circle of suspicion began to shrink, tightening around the one person who professed to love her most. The day Catherine died, StephenAnderson was not simply out running errands as he initially claimed. Cell phone records, transaction logs, and witness statements started to paint a different picture. His movements were not as casual or as brief as he had described. There were gaps, unexplained periods, and discrepancies that gnawed at the investigators. A man in his position, a man who spoke with such certainty from the pulpit, was now struggling to articulate a coherent timeline for the most devastating day of his life. This contradiction, initially subtle, grew into a glaring inconsistency, demanding an explanation. The authorities brought StephenAnderson in for questioning. It wasn't an aggressive interrogation, not at first. They spoke with him respectfully, acknowledging his grief, but gently pushing on the inconsistencies. They laid out the timeline, the forensic evidence, the small, undeniable facts that chipped away at his facade. A man who could preach with conviction suddenly found his words failing him. The smooth, practiced cadence of his sermons was replaced by hesitation, evasion, and ultimately a chilling silence. He refused a polygraph examination, a decision that, while not admissible in court, raised a significant red flag for the seasoned detectives.
The breaking point for StephenAnderson came when he was confronted with the medical examiner's findings, the petechial hemorrhages, the undeniable signs of asphyxiation. He couldn't explain them away. He couldn't pretend she had simply collapsed. Cornered by the inescapable truth of forensic science, the carefully constructed image of the grieving pastor began to crumble. He broke down, not in profound sorrow for his lost wife, but in a cold, calculating confession that shocked even the most hardened investigators. He admitted to killing Catherine. The details of his confession were stark and brutal. He had strangled her with his bare hands. He offered no dramatic motive of passion or self-defense, but rather a cold, almost casual admission of the act itself. He claimed he had simply snapped during an argument. But investigators wondered, was it truly a sudden outburst or a culmination of simmering frustrations, perhaps fueled by financial pressures and a desire to escape his marital obligations? The confession opened a window into the mind of a man who could commit an unspeakable act and then calmly try to conceal it behind a veil of piety and public respect.
The arrest of Pastor StephenAnderson sent shockwaves through the First Baptist Church of Mount Olive and the entire Gardendale community. The news was met with a mixture of utter disbelief, profound sadness, and a deep, visceral sense of betrayal. How could the man who had preached sermons of love, forgiveness, and salvation be capable of such a horrific act? His congregation, who had entrusted him with their spiritual well-being, now grappled with the devastating realization that they had been living a lie, worshiping under the guidance of a killer. Many felt a deep sense of betrayal, not just for Catherine, but for the very idea of sanctuary within their church. Have you ever witnessed such a profound breach of trust in your own life or community? The outpouring of grief for Catherine was immense, but it was compounded by a collective sense of confusion and disillusionment. People struggled to reconcile the image of the compassionate pastor with the brutal reality of the murderer. It was a crisis of faith, not just in an individual, but in the very institutions that are supposed to represent moral rectitude. The emotional fallout was widespread, affecting families, friendships, and the spiritual foundation of the community itself. How could they ever look at a leader the same way again? How could they rebuild trust when it had been shattered so completely from within? The legal proceedings moved forward. StephenAnderson was charged with murder. Faced with overwhelming evidence, including his own confession and the irrefutable forensic findings, he ultimately pleaded guilty. On November 24, 2014, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The courtroom was filled with Catherine's grieving family, who finally found a measure of justice, though it could never bring her back. For the community, it was a moment of closure, but not of healing. The scar of betrayal would remain. This case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions: appearance versus reality. StephenAnderson was a master of deception, living a double life where his public persona as a man of God completely masked the darkness within. He embodied the ultimate contradiction, a spiritual leader committing the most fundamental sin against humanity, against his own wife. The community, caught in the web of his manufactured piety, never saw it coming. They knew the killer, yes, intimately, but the killer they knew was a construct, a performance. Even after the conviction, even with the confession, one central, gnawing question remains. How does a person, especially one in such a prominent and trusted position, maintain such an elaborate, emotionally demanding facade for so long?
What internal mechanism allows someone to preach sermons of love and then, in the privacy of their home, commit an act of such ultimate violence? Was there a moment when the mask slipped, a subtle warning sign missed? Or was his deception so perfect, so complete, that it truly was undetectable until the terrible truth emerged? The ability to present one face to the world and harbor such a different reality within is a chilling testament to the complexities of human nature and the unsettling power of manipulation. This ability to present one face to the world and harbor such a different reality within is a chilling testament to the complexities of human nature and the unsettling power of manipulation. It forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth that some individuals can construct and maintain a facade so utterly convincing, so deeply ingrained in their daily interactions that it becomes impenetrable to even those closest to them. The question isn't just about StephenAnderson, but about the very architecture of deceit. How does one build such a psychological fortress? Psychologists and criminal profilers have long grappled with the concept of the mask of sanity, often associated with psychopathy or profound narcissism. We aren't here to diagnose StephenAnderson, but to dissect the behaviors that allowed him to exist as two entirely different people. These individuals often possess a remarkable capacity for mimicry. They observe social norms, emotional responses, and the expectations placed upon them, then they perform them. For Stephen, the role of a devoted pastor was not merely a job, it was the ultimate stage. He learned the lines, perfected the gestures, adopted the vocabulary of compassion and piety, all while apparently experiencing little genuine empathy for the people he was supposedly shepherding.
Consider the sheer mental energy this must have required. Every sermon, every comforting word to a grieving parishioner, every counseling session, each interaction was a calculated performance. We often speak of individuals with double lives as if they switch roles effortlessly, but this level of sustained deception is grueling. It's a constant tightrope walk, an unending improvisation where the stakes are incredibly high. Exposure. What fuels such an arduous charade? Often it's a profound sense of entitlement, a grandiose self-image that demands admiration, combined with a deep-seated contempt for others, viewing them merely as instruments to be manipulated for personal gain or to maintain the illusion of one's own perfection. The congregation, the community, even Catherine herself were not just victims of a crime, but also unwitting participants in a meticulously staged play. They saw what they expected to see, a man of God, a pillar of their community, a loving husband. Our brains are wired to create coherence, to connect the dots in a way that makes sense. When a person holds such a respected position, our cognitive biases kick in. We attribute positive traits, we overlook minor inconsistencies, we rationalize away anything that doesn't fit the established narrative. This is the halo effect in full destructive force. Stephen didn't just deceive them, he leveraged their own good faith, their hopes, and their desire to believe in someone good. It makes you wonder how often we might unknowingly be fooled by appearances. Have you ever encountered someone who seemed one way publicly but turned out to be entirely different in private? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The true genius of such a deception lies in its normalcy. Stephen didn't need elaborate schemes in his public life. He just needed to be consistent, to embody the role. The inconsistencies, if any, were likely subtle, easily dismissed. Perhaps a flicker of coldness in his eyes when under pressure, a quick, almost imperceptible shift in tone, an overreaction to a minor slight that was immediately smoothed over.
These are the elusive cracks in the mask that, in hindsight, seem so obvious but are almost impossible to detect in the moment, especially when you are emotionally invested in the person and their role. What about Catherine? What was her experience living with this carefully constructed illusion? Did she too believe the performance? Or did she, in the intimate confines of their home, see glimpses of the true Stephen? The isolation often imposed on victims of manipulative individuals is profound. A partner like Stephen would likely work to discredit any concerns Catherine might voice, to make her question her own perceptions, to slowly erode her confidence until she doubted her own sanity before she would doubt his sanctity. This pattern, known as gaslighting, is a common tool for those who live double lives, ensuring that their private reality remains hidden from the world. We can only speculate about the silent battles Catherine might have fought, the whispers of doubt she might have tried to suppress, trying to reconcile the devoted pastor with the man who lived within their four walls. Her struggle, unseen and unheard, underscores the tragedy. The psychological burden on the perpetrator, though often devoid of moral regret, is immense. Maintaining two separate realities, two distinct identities, demands constant vigilance. It's a perpetual state of alert, of managing impressions, of preventing the two worlds from colliding. This constant psychological tension, though unacknowledged or reframed as necessary by the perpetrator, must at some point seek an outlet. Whether that outlet manifests as increased aggression, a desire for total control, or ultimately a violent act is a chilling thought. For Stephen, the ultimate outlet became the murder of his wife, the person most likely to penetrate his carefully guarded inner world, or perhaps the one who threatened to expose it. The very nature of his role as a pastor amplified the betrayal, making it not just a crime against an individual, but a wound to the collective trust of an entire community. A pastor is meant to be a shepherd, a confessor, a moral guide. To have that trust so profoundly violated leaves a scar that goes deeper than simple grief. It plants a seed of doubt. If this man, so revered, so outwardly virtuous, could hide such darkness, who else might be doing the same? This question echoes long after the headlines fade, poisoning relationships and eroding faith in institutions. The psychological complexity of cases like StephenAnderson's are incredibly compelling. If you find these deep dives into human nature and true crime fascinating, consider subscribing to Truecrime. We unravel the most intricate cases, always seeking to understand the why behind the what. This case is a stark reminder that character is not defined by public acclaim or the roles we play, but by what we do when no one is watching. StephenAnderson's public persona was a masterpiece of illusion, crafted to perfection, but his private self was a void of empathy, a space where darkness flourished unchecked. The contradiction between the two was so extreme, so fundamental, that it defied comprehension for the very people who lived and worshipped alongside him. They knew a killer, yes, but only the performance, never the man pulling the strings behind the elaborate curtain of piety. Even now, long after the verdicts and the confessions, the core mystery persists. How truly perfect was his deception? Were there subtle signs that were not understood, perhaps even dismissed, because the implications were too terrifying to contemplate? We, as humans, want to believe in the good, especially when it's presented to us wrapped in the sacred vestments of faith and community. Our capacity for self-deception, our willingness to trust, can sometimes be our greatest vulnerability.
The StephenAnderson case serves as a dark mirror, reflecting not just the depths of a killer's depravity, but also the universal human struggle to discern true character from cunning performance. The unsettling truth is that some deceptions run so deep they challenge our very understanding of trust. If this exploration resonates with you, please share this video. It helps us bring more of these crucial investigations to light. His life, in retrospect, became a chilling study in dualism, the saintly shepherd versus the brutal predator, each existing within the same skin. The enduring legacy of this case isn't just a testament to the tragic loss of Catherine Anderson, but also to the unsettling realization that the human capacity for dissimulation can be far more sophisticated and terrifying than we ever care to imagine, especially when cloaked in the mantle of absolute trust. It forces us to ask, what if the most dangerous wolf is the one disguised as a sheep leading the flock? And what if, even when given all the evidence, we still struggle to reconcile the two? This isn't merely about evidence, it's about the profound shock to our fundamental assumptions of character, especially when that character is cloaked in sanctity. Imagine the congregation, the very people who look to him for solace, for guidance, for spiritual truth. How do they process the reality that the hand extended in blessing was also capable of such brutal violence? The psychological fallout from such a revelation can be devastating, eroding not just faith in an individual, but in institutions, in the very fabric of communal trust. It forces a reevaluation of every sermon, every kind word, every moment of perceived vulnerability shared. Was it all a performance? In retrospect, people often recall fleeting moments of unease, a flicker in the eyes, an uncharacteristic comment, dismissed at the time as stress or an off day. We rationalize what doesn't fit our established narrative. It's a defense mechanism, a way to protect the perceived safety of our worldview. But once the mask falls, these whispers transform into roaring alarms, each small discrepancy now an undeniable clue. The terrifying realization dawns that the monster wasn't lurking in the shadows. He was standing in the brightest light, welcomed into homes, trusted with secrets. Perhaps this deep dive into the human tendency to rationalize the uncomfortable, even the terrifying, resonates with your own experiences or observations. If so, sharing your thoughts in the comments below can help us collectively understand these complex psychological blind spots. What this case undeniably illustrates is the intricate dance between our inherent desire to believe in goodness and the chilling reality of sophisticated evil. It's not just a story of a single monstrous individual. It's a story about us, about the human condition itself and our sometimes fragile ability to perceive true intentions. I keep coming back to the sheer audacity required to maintain such a facade year after year, knowing the abyss hidden beneath the surface. It's a level of self-control, or perhaps self-deception, that almost defies comprehension. Understanding cases like StephenAnderson's isn't about sensationalism. It's about learning to navigate the treacherous waters of human trust and deception. If you find value in these explorations of the darker corners of human behavior, consider subscribing to Truecrime to ensure you don't miss future investigations. The shadows we cast are often projections of what we expect to see, not what truly exists. And sometimes, the most dangerous deceptions are the ones we willingly help construct, brick by psychological brick, around the very people we believe in the most. The facade he built was meticulous, but the truth always finds a way. What, in your view, was the most chilling aspect of StephenAnderson's deception?
The tragedy of Catherine Anderson's death is not just the loss of a life, but the shattering of trust that reverberated through an entire community. It's a stark reminder that evil can wear many faces, sometimes even the most benevolent ones. The man they knew, the kind and gentle pastor, was a carefully crafted illusion. The true killer remained hidden in plain sight, concealed by the very robes of his office, until the silent screams of forensic evidence finally brought his dark truth into the light.